Hey gaming fans, so today's another Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile, and this one is UAs, well, Ultra Athletes or whatever you want to call them. These guys are all about kind of bouncing back and forth from the field, from your hand, and from the deck too. Sort of like Gladiator Beasts in a way, but these guys I think are a little bit easier to control and summon. Anyways, let's get to the build. So we got two of the UA midfielder. These guys were the first ones to be the only level 4 monster out of the group of monsters. So basically, this guy has the same effect as most of them have at the beginning. You could special summon this card from your hand by returning one UA monster you control to your hand, except another copy of himself, or himself. And then you could special summon one UA midfielder, and you can only do it once. And then during either player's turn, you could target one other UA monster you control, return that face-up monster to your hand, and then special summon a UA monster from your hand with a different name. So that's really cool that if you had him and another UA monster out, during your opponent's turn, you can just swap that other one out and drop one down. That might have a really strong effect or might disrupt your opponent's plays. So we played 2 of those. And then we got 3 of the slightly newer UA Liberal Spiker. This one came out a few months ago, I think, or a few sets ago. I'm not sure when it came out. A couple of sets ago, anyways. You can special summon this card from your hand, so he's got the same as all the other ones, so I won't bother reading that on everyone. But this guy's effect is pretty cool, is that during your opponent's main phase, you could shuffle one level 5 or higher UA monster from your hand, which is most of them. And if you do, special summon one UA monster from your deck with a different name, and then return this card to your hand. So really cool effect, similar to the other one, except it's from the deck, which is cool. And you can shuffle, you know, whatever level 5 you got in your hand, 5 or higher. Also, he's 1800 in level 4, so all good stats there. So then we got one of the more control cards again. Perfect Ace is pretty cool. He's got 2500 defense, one of those cards you want to end your turn with. So you might want to swap, you know, whatever's in play with this guy. And once during your opponent's turn, when a card or effect is activated, you could discard one card to negate the activation and destroy it. So that's really cool to have like a Solemn Judgment sort of thing in your hand, or on the field that you just have to discard from your hand. And you know, 2500 defense, he's a pretty good wall. Then for a little bit of the, you know, aggression, I put in 2 of the UA Mighty Sluggers. I guess you can get away with 1 if you want. I just like that he's, you know, a little bit bigger, and when he attacks, your opponent can't activate any cards or effects until the end of the damage step. So you know when you go to attack with this guy, you're safe from anything your opponent might try and throw at you. Then we got one of the UA Dreadnought Dunker. This guy, he's okay. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing damage to your opponent, and then when this card does inflict battle damage to your opponent, you can target one card on the field and destroy it. So not only are you going to pierce through whatever defense mode monster, then you get to destroy one card, which could be another monster or a spell or a trap or whatever. So he's really cool. Some people do play 2 or 3 of these guys. It depends on your preference. So we got one UA block backer. So this guy, he's kind of like a football player, I guess. Once per turn, when your opponent special summons monsters, you could change their battle positions, and if you do, negate their effects. So that's another one that's pretty cool. You know, if they special summon into like an Xyz monster or a Synchro or something, you can negate the effect and then just turn it to defense mode. Unfortunately, he's not going to do anything against the Link monster, but you know, you still have all the other normal, you know, special summon monsters that you can affect with him. Then we got one UA Rebounder. This guy's kind of good. During your opponent's turn, or if this card is summoned special summon during your opponent's turn or normal summon, you can special summon one UA monster from your hand or graveyard. So I really like the fact that you can grab from the graveyard. So if your opponent does destroy one of them, or discards one of them, you could just pull it back, or it could be from your hand. So he kind of is like, you know, just like the other guy, he could disrupt your opponent's play, throw something into the field, and, you know, deal with your opponent's. So then we got 2 of the UA Goalkeeper. This guy's neat. You can target one AUA monster you control once per turn. It cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. So, you know, if your opponent tries to destroy, you can activate the effect and then just save that card or itself. And, you know, 2800 defense, so you put him in defense mode, you end your turn, leave him in defense mode, and he can pretty much survive. I mean, obviously they can bounce him or banish him, but, you know, it depends on what your opponent's playing. Then for the final UA monster, we have 3 of the Player Manager. This guy's cool. He's sort of like a, you know, he's similar to a few of the other ones, where he's easier to get out though. When you normal summon or special summon a UA monster, except during a damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. So all you have to do is normal summon one of your level 4s, or even if you end up special summoning one of the ones from your hand, you could just special summon this guy. And then you get to target one card on the field and destroy it, or negate the effect of all face-up monsters your opponent controls, which is pretty powerful. Well, actually all monsters on the field except for UA monsters, which, unless your opponent's playing also UA monsters, like if you're in a mirror match, that's pretty good that you can shut down all their monster effects. Then for the spells, we got 1 Reinforcements of the Army. So the one cool thing about this deck theme is that it's got a lot of searchers in it. So if you like decks that can search out a lot of cards, this deck can do it. So you got your Reinforcements, which would grab either your midfielder or your spiker, depending on what you want. They're both level 4 warriors. Then we got 3 UA Signing Deal. Another searcher, only this one actually special summons the monster to the field instead of just adding it to your hand. It does negate the effects, but that's okay because you'll probably bounce it back to your hand anyways. Also cannot be used as a Synchro or Xyz material for a summer. Now for this deck, I didn't build an extra deck because I didn't think it really needs one, but you can obviously have one. You know, throw in some Link monsters, throw in some, you know, whatever you want. So basically what you do is you special summon a UA monster from your deck, and then you lose life points equal to the level of that monster you special summon by 3 times 300. So it does kind of hurt you, but I mean, being able to special summon any monster from your deck is really powerful, especially in this deck where you need to get stuff onto the field right away. Then we got the newer field spell. This came out with the Spiker guy in the same set, and the last guy there, the Player Manager. So the Hyper Stadium's cool because it has, this card's always treated as an FA card, which that's irrelevant in this build anyways. But when this card is activated, you get to add a UA or FA monster from your deck to your hand, or add a UA Stadium from your graveyard to your hand. So there's some more search power. And then you can reveal 1 field spell in your hand and pay 1,000 life points. You can normal summon 1 UA or FA monster during your main phase this turn. So it gives you a double summon as well, which is good. You know, you can actually add a monster to your hand and then you can normal summon it. So a really, really good card there. And then the UA Stadium, which is the original field spell. So I'm playing 2 of those. This is still a good spell. I mean, once you get this out on the field, if a UA monster is normal summoned to your side of the field, you can add 1 UA monster from your deck to your hand. So pretty much your 4s there, when you normal summon one of your 4s, you get to add 1 UA monster to your hand, which is good. And then once per turn, if a UA monster is special summoned to your side of the field, all monsters you currently control gain 500 attack. So nice little boost up too. And of course, like I said, this deck does a lot of searching. So we got Terraforming to search out either one of those these field spells. So really good there. So I got 1 Monster Reborn, just because I thought, monster, why not? It's a good card. And then 2 of the UA powered jerseys. This one I figure, you know, along with Slugger, it's a really good combination there. You equip only to a UA monster, and it gains 1,000 attack and defense. Also, if it battles an opponent's monster, any battle damage it inflicts to your opponent is doubled. So if, you know, you put it on that piercing guy, or any of your monsters is going to make an attack on a weaker monster, you're going to do a lot of damage. And also, it can make a second attack during this battle phase. So then during your standby phase, banish the equipped monster. So you got to bounce him back after you're done with this card, or else he's going to get banished. But that's fine, because it also has this effect where if you do bounce the monster back to your hand to special summon another UA monster, this card will go back to your hand as well. So I like how they integrated that you can just keep, you know, bringing the card back to your hand and then use it again and then bring it back. Really good, really works with the theme. Then I play 1 UA turnover tactics. I've seen other builds where they play 2, 3. This is more of a preference card, I think. It is a control card, so it can control your opponent. If you control 2 or more UA monsters with different names, shuffle as many of those monsters on the field as possible. Shuffle as many monsters, I should say, on the field as possible. So all the monsters pretty much on the field get shuffled into the respective decks. And then you special summon UA monsters from your deck that have different names from each other, up to the number of cards shuffled into your main deck. But those monsters cannot attack this turn. So you're basically swapping out your field of monsters with a new set of monsters. And then your opponent has to do the same. They shuffle theirs. This says, then your opponent can special summon monsters from their deck up to the number of cards shuffled into their main deck. So it does say main deck. I'm not sure what happens if monsters get shuffled into this extra deck. I think they don't get anything out of that. So they're supposed to shuffle their monsters into their deck and also get monsters. But I think if it goes to the extra deck, they get squat. So I'd have to check the ruling on that, but I think that's what it is. Then we got Raigeki. Oh, also to note that this card is searchable, which we'll talk about later. That's why I put 1 in. Then I put Raigeki, just, you know, standard destruction spell, Feather Duster, you know, again, standard destruction spell. And then the final spell is 3 Foolish Burial Goods. So this is basically you send a spell or a trap from your deck to your graveyard. And you can only activate it once per turn. That's fine, but the card you're going to send is one of the 3 penalty boxes. So UA Penalty Box is an interesting card. It's a continuous trap, so when it's face up at the start of the damage step, if your UA monster battles an opponent's monster, you could banish that opponent's monster until your opponent's second end phase. So really good at just removing monsters that might have, you know, maybe have counters on them or something or whatnot. You get rid of it, and you can only use it once per turn. But the reason why you'd use Foolish Burial Goods is that once per turn you can banish this card from your graveyard, add 1 UA spell card from your deck to your hand. So again, that's where the searching comes in. So it can add the turnover tactics if you need it, the power jersey, one of the stadium cards. So or if you need to pull out a monster, you can grab your signing deal. So it really depends on what you want, but that's very versatile, just to get that into the grave. And then for the final trap, I threw in a breakthrough skill, just because I thought it'd be, you know, you do have the 3 of the Foolish Burial Goods, and if you draw a couple of penalty boxes in your hand, you might end up with the Foolish Burial Goods and nothing to use. So I thought, hey, let's throw in a breakthrough skill, because this card works well on its own if you summon it to the field, if you set it to the field, because it can negate a flip of an effect monster, but also if it's in your graveyard, you can banish it during your turn to also negate one of your opponent's monsters. So say if they have one of those, you know, monsters that can negate everything, you could just banish it from your graveyard and negate that monster's effect. So that's what I thought, you know, breakthrough skill just being another target for Foolish Burial Goods, and just being an okay trap on its own. So that's basically the UA build that I put together. Really fun deck. With the newer cards that came out, makes this deck a little bit more playable, especially with cards like Hyper Stadium. Signing Deal makes it really good. And I just like the versatility of the monsters in that you can grab whatever you need to kind of disrupt your opponent's plays and do whatever you need to do and control the board. Anyways, that's the deck. Throw some comments down below. I always like to hear what you have to say. If you play this build, throw some suggestions. I'd like to hear it. Anyways, hope you liked the video. Hope you subscribe. Talk to you later.